Today is September the 21st, 2020. This is the Service Hero Show. 365 days of awesome. Celebrate success through service. My name is Tamara Hunter. I am your host, and this is the show that shares the inspiring stories of those that are inspiring others. So let's do this. Today we have someone that I'm very excited to have. And it's like you dressed up for the show. That blue is like perfect, Martin. Lopez is a gentleman that actually I've got to know because he's in my neck of the woods, the Southern California area. And over a period of time, you get a chance to meet the people that you kind of are running into. And there are some that you just want to keep running into a lot more. And Martin is one of them. He's truly a service hero. He showed up. There was a time he showed up one time that at kind of like a last minute on as a favor and brought all this gear, showed up for a day, was there, worked, and then went and did other stuff because he was asked. That's the kind of person that makes a difference in this world. And he is absolutely doing that in the service that he performs as himself. Plus, then he has a program that he is out there making a difference with too. And we're going to talk about that today. So welcome, Martin. I'm so excited to have you here. You're so much fun.
Thank you, Tamara. I'll try to pump it up here more.
Well,
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You just showing up does it. You just showing up. You're welcome. And
I like that fun.
Well, and it shows. It always does. Now, you have some musical instruments right there behind you. Yeah. So tell us. I mean, I was so surprised when I heard that, yes, you not only have all of these amazing business skills and you understand the whole theory and everything, you're also a musician.
Yeah, I actually used to I started a record company when I was in my 20s. I had a record company for a few years, and I was a record producer and wrote a lot of music and did some touring and played the sax and some keyboards and different things around the globe, really around the United States.
You just keep adding more to it. You're so humble. I mean,
don't like sitting around. I'm hyper.
I love it. And we have people showing up right now, and I want to honor them and say hello. And we've got Carol Betterzins. She's one Carol. Of the Chemo Buddy for Life, one of our senior ambassadors and also one of the producers for the show. She always lets me know we are live on the E360 TV platform. Excited about that, isn't it? It's really cool. Kind of very cool. And she's saying hello to you. Then we have got another one of our senior ambassadors, Sherry McQueen. And and me,
I love Sherry. She's just so positive.
Isn't she?
Yeah.
She really is. And I love also the way that our buddies interact and it's all combined. And that's what we're going to actually be talking about a bit today. And that is that, I mean, look at this. Carol is addressing Sherry and then she goes right back to it. And then she's also like, oh, love your program. Yeah.
She's always commenting and doing stuff like that. And I think that's the beautiful thing about social media. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that people talk about it. People are trolls and all that other stuff, but you really get the opportunity to connect with people that, like, I'm super busy. So to connect with someone and to feel like that love, like Sherry always has positive comments and I just see them on my phone and it just like brings a smile, brings joy to my face and just reminds me that I'm on the right path. Cause how do we know we're on the right path, right?
Exactly. And that's a good question right there. How do we know that we're on the right path? And I want to get into why it is that you ask such good questions. And I'm going to share a screen for just a second, and we're going to get into it because I love this image. I think it's just like so cool. I mean, seriously, the curiosity theory,
Yeah.
curiosity theory, and with the light bulb, with the question mark, and I mean, just everything about it. And when when I first heard you speak, I think the very first time I ever heard it, we were at an event in Mission Valley, and you were one of the keynote speakers, and you had all of your really cool stuff, and I was streaming live, but I remember that at times I was forgetting to even look at the camera or making sure that everything was good because I was writing so many notes. Seriously,
That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. I remember it. So if there was ever a glitch with the way that it was working, it was because I was writing notes. I was so engaged with what you shared, and
Wow.
yeah, and it's absolutely true because the curiosity theory. And I just want to say we've got more people showing up, and
Oh,
I'm
so
loving it.
grateful.
I'm
Thank you
loving it.
guys for hanging out.
Yes, and
Hey,
Randy
Randy.
Ward, may I say, Randy is actually an international. She's a she's a teacher, an English
Uh-huh.
teacher, retired, and she teaches English to people from all over the world every
Wow.
single day. She's got this amazing. I mean, she just gives and gives. Another service hero,
That's a
and
hero.
yeah, well, and so are you, and you will get it even that much more as we talk about the curiosity theory. So let's get into that.
Yeah.
Curiosity theory.
How about if we put the logo back up and I'll kind of give you an idea what it is, if that's
Okay,
okay.
you got it. Absolutely. There you go.
So when we look at curiosity, I kind of broke it up in three different parts, like the curiosity theory. The first part is the label, all three. Then curiosity is the thing, and theory is saying that I don't know, like I'm not an absolute. This is an absolute truth. It's a theory. Like, hey, let's try this out. And the logo, the question mark with a light bulb is saying, it says, if you could be curious, you'll like come up with stuff, like boom, like the light bulb goes off. And that's what the idea is. It's about being curious as possibility, and just stay curious and see what shows up.
See why I love this? I mean, really, seriously, because you be curious and see what shows up. And my mind just goes into so many different places right now, Martine, because curiosity, you can look at it curiosity for yourself, you can look at it for curiosity for what you're doing, like with having the buddies in the nonprofit.
Yes.
You can, and for the show, curiosity in, okay, I'm seeing someone serve others, I'd like to know more, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, let's just face it. With what's going on in the world right now, that's why I'm dating the shows. September the 21st, right?
Yes.
And what is happening? Well, we know that there's quite a few things happening between a pandemic and the weather issues. Southern California and the western states, all of the fires. I mean, so many
politics, relationships.
Exactly. You can just keep
It
multi-layering
doesn't
it.
end. Yeah.
So how do you know where to start? That's where I'm going with the light bulb. It's like, okay, one question in a light bulb, and yet you have so many different things that you can, it's like this rays behind us kind of thing,
Yeah.
as many as you want to look for, you could go anywhere. How do you know where to start?
I'm going to write something down really quick. Because it just made me think of something. Well, I just look and see what I'm curious about. I'm curious about things like, what am I curious about and why am I curious about that? So when I wake up in the morning, I have a certain routine. I'm not really curious about that routine, so I just do the routine. Mm-hmm. So I use curiosity immediately when I'm in the routine because there's things I have to do. So I just look and see where I can apply it. And that might be a bad answer. Maybe that's a really bad answer. How about if I answer this question this way? How about if I be curious? What do you mean by the question?
Good question. Excellent question. And what I mean by the question is because my day, I do go in a variety of different places.
Mm-hmm.
And at times I feel as though it could be a curiosity, because I'm a very curious cat. I can tell you that. And
Uh-huh.
that is that when I'm working in one area, I I will want to dive deeper, and then because I keep wanting to know more. I guess you could say that's curiosity. And then I have to watch my clock, because I know I have so many different things to
Mm-hmm.
take care of in the day, or I'm going to get way behind. And my curiosity sometimes can be almost overwhelming. And so then it's a matter of, okay, I'm here. Now, what's more important, to get the task done at hand, or just to go down that curiosity rabbit hole, even
Good
in a way,
question.
because I am a rabbit holer at times. I am. I
You
have a
can
bit of a
spiral,
geek.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a bit of a geek personality. I love to learn, and so curiosity is something that I I don't want to say I struggle with, but
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons I think that I love your program so much, because it's saying it's a good thing to
Yeah.
understand, or to have the curiosity for understanding. And then we'll get into the I
How about if I
love the
use it? How about if I break down everything you just said
Okay,
and use that?
I
Okay.
would love that. And while you're doing that, I'm still going to be recognizing people quietly
Okay.
and listening to you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So, what I do is I've learned a methodology that has me like listen for certain things, and there's specific things that I listen to. And when you listen for those things, you almost can hear everything somebody's talking about, like everything. And you can certainly hear what's they're saying is important, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's really what's important for them. This is what I mean. A
Okay.
lot of times we're going to say, as human beings, as people, we're going to say something, and then as soon as it comes out of our mouth, like, oh shoot, that's not really what I meant. But we're in the conversation already, so now we got to figure out a way to get back in, stay in the conversation, and then maneuver in the conversation to say, almost as to say, that thing I just said a second ago, can you just forget that and let me try again? But we don't do that. What we do is we talk on top of what we just said.
Okay.
So I'm
Right.
gonna start with that. Okay. So what you just said a minute ago is you said something that I thought was really important. You said, I feel as though. Okay. So
Okay.
whenever people say, this is the curiosity theory. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of
Right.
break it down.
Right. Yeah. No,
So
this is
whenever
what I
people
want.
say,
Yeah.
thank you. Whenever people say, I feel as though, what
Uh,
they're going to tell you is a metaphor. They're going to tell you a story.
oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right? I feel as though you don't love me. I feel as though you meant to hurt me. I feel as though you weren't paying attention. And whenever we speak that way, there's no truth to that. That's like not truth. That's
Yeah.
a metaphor. That's a
Yeah.
story. So it's not addressing feeling, but you did address feeling. And I'm going to show you where. So you said, I feel as though, and then you said something, and you said, when I'm, and then you said something, right? I want to and I want to deep dive into curiosity. And then you then gave a list, and then you said overwhelm, and then rabbit hole, and then you love to learn. So those are really important things about you. So what I know about you based on what you just said is that you love to learn,
Mm-hmm.
that you're cautious about like going in a rabbit hole and like getting lost. Would that be accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Well,
then overwhelm. Go ahead.
yet when I had the time, because of the fact that I was going through my cancer journey,
Mm-hmm.
and I had nothing but time.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to say that's one of the reasons that I had no problem. When I talk about that time, there's a lot of like joy in that time,
Yes.
because I got to dive deep, and I got
Yes.
to play as much as I wanted, and I
Mm-hmm.
could just go in whatever little tunnel I wanted and learn here and then go there and learn and
Mm-hmm.
and keep going, because I had the, if you will, the abundance of time,
Yeah.
and I could do that, and oh, I
Yeah.
loved it. And in truth, then I would talk to my doctors about that too, and they were like, keep it up, because that's what you want. We want people to be finding the joy in their life, and because
Absolutely.
that's what's going to keep them going in their life.
Absolutely. So you notice when I gave you back what you said, then you
Yeah.
clarified, right? You dove a little deeper. And then what came out is like your self-expression came out. Like you started getting excited about what you were just saying.
Right.
So that's what happens with human beings. When we connect with what's important to people, then what it does is it triggers something in them and they run with it. And the reason it happens is because we don't normally do that with people. Like oftentimes we're waiting to say what we want to say, which completely shuts off what the person just said. I do that all the time. That's like one of my toughest things. And so why did I learn the curiosity theory? Because that's the way I was. I was the kind of person that thought what I had to say was really important. And then I acted as though what I had to say was more important than the other person. That was at least what was coming across. That's what people told me, because I would cut people off. Right. And so I had to learn how to stop. And listen. And then, that in its own, it's not really that fun to stop and just listen, right? Like, well, what about me? Think about that. Like, if all I got to do is just listen to people, I'm like, well, what's in it for me? So then I had to figure out, like, well, what's in it for me to listen? Because and this is what people do. They say, well, Martine, if you listen, this is what's in it. This is what's in it. Well, that's from their perspective, what's in it, not from my perspective. So I had to figure out, like, how do I look at life and get what I need? That sounds kind of selfish, but it's kind of like how we all are. So they started to explore like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's what this is. This is a needs list. And this came from nonviolent communication, but I broke it up a little differently than they did. And I started to realize that if I listen, I can get something out of it. And what was the thing I wanted in my life? Well, I wanted to be the best version of myself. So if I listen, I can practice being the best version of myself. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so what I started to do is I started to see, like, what do I get out of things? And then those things that I was getting out of the conversations and communications made me a better version of myself, because they addressed higher parts of the hierarchy of needs, like, fulfilling my personal potential or causes beyond myself. So I started to listen to people as though what's being said has nothing to do with me. And I can learn something. I can learn something by listening. So I started to take joy in those kinds of things. And so when I was listening to you, I literally take joy in making notes, because I'm really interested. I'm authentically interested in what's important to you. You said you got to learn to play. You got to learn things, and it was like playing, right? And you got to dive deeper. And then you talked about the rabbit hole, and then you said yet, almost like a but. So the rabbit hole, which means to me, like, the rabbit hole isn't all that we're talking about. There's more to it. And then you go into that. And so I get to find out about you. And you said a word that was really important, overwhelm. So I'm going to ask you the question. What is overwhelm for you? How does that occur for you?
Oh, you're funny, Martine. In truth, I know I do it to myself.
Yeah.
I part of all of it too is because I do like to play and I do like to learn. And in growing up, I was one of those bubble kids, and so I didn't get to go play out in the playground or with other kids outside or anything. I was inside in my little bubble. And so when I would play, it would be, and we didn't have computers and such, so like to go to the library and to go into a certain area and then be able to take those things home and be able to play with them. To me, that was play. And so then I would just keep and I would crunch up this, kind of like, I guess, when you go and play on the slides, and then you go over to the, I'd see the kids going slides, and they go over to the swings, and then they do all the other things, right? With me, it would be, I would go and do this, and I might be in history, and then I might go over here and I might do art, or I might do projects, or I might, whatever it may be, right? Well, I never stopped doing that. And so I have a tendency, and then I always knew there was something big to do. in my life, and when I survived cancer, and then starting this nonprofit, a worldwide nonprofit.
Yes.
And then how do you go about it? Well, then I started looking at it like play.
Yeah.
Okay, however, then I ended up having so many things to do and commitments, and then that ended up being where the overwhelm came in, because it's like
Yeah.
I did it to myself. However, I still love it. I
Yeah.
love what I'm doing, absolutely, and thank you for asking. Wow, it's just I see, guys, service hero, service hero. We need to go, and I want to ask more about you, but this is really wonderful, and so many people are getting a lot out of this, and I want to recognize Ruben's like shouting out to a lot of people, come and
He's
play
giving
with
the
us.
love out there, right?
I
That's
know
awesome.
he
Thank you, Ruben.
is, and I'm loving it. And then Helene is saying, thank you, Randy, for showing me. And we've got service heroes that are working with different
Yeah.
buddies, and I want to recognize that too.
Yeah.
And we have some more buddies showing up. Love it. And she's sharing the love. All right, so we are caught up. So
let's talk about what just happened.
yes.
So in curiosity, so I told you there's three things I look at, right? I look at feeling. I look at observations, feelings, and needs. So I observe, and I separate facts from stories, and then I look for people when they're expressing a feeling, and then I look for people when they're expressing a need. So when people say something like, "I feel as though," okay, so I feel as though, that's typically not going to be a true feeling, but it's going to be on top of something. You're going to try to, basically what you're trying to do is explain something. I feel as though, but you're not really saying what it is. So I would say, I feel as though I ate too much last night, right? So that's not really, that kind of tells a story, but it could say, I could say, I feel embarrassed, which would be expressing a feeling, right? I feel embarrassed that I ate a hamburger last night. Okay. And that's like, it doesn't necessarily answer everything, but it says, but it's more powerful than the other thing. As I feel as though I ate too much last night. It's like, all right, so what do you want me to do with that? It's almost like giving a problem that you have to somebody else to solve. And that's how we talk. That's how language is. And that's how we talk to people. We give people problems to solve for us.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because if that's what someone is thinking that I'm doing.
Well, they don't think you're doing it because it's built in the language.
Okay, and am I doing that unaware?
Yeah, because it's built into the language.
Okay, all right.
See, the way our language is put together, it's built a particular way, and we've learned to use the language that way. And I still use the language that way. I feel like I feel like you weren't paying attention. So what am I saying?
That you're ignoring me.
Well, that's my observation. So, but now I'm accusing you of something. So now I'm judging, blaming, or complaining about you. So if I'm telling you you're ignoring me, Tamara, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you
feel? How do I feel? Well, if it was true, I would feel busted. And right now, if it was happening right now, I would think, wow, okay, what do I need to do to adjust what I am doing, and so that I can honor the fact that I am truly listening, but for some reason it doesn't appear as though I am.
Yeah.
And so, I would be, because that's where I would go in my brain.
Yeah. So now I've given you a problem, and in your brain, you're going to do this thing with it, right?
Right.
So I've now made you responsible for what I'm experiencing.
Right.
And you're not responsible for what I'm experiencing.
Right.
So I may say, and then you're not ignoring me. So it's going to be kind of weird to try to figure this out. So let me act like you were ignoring me, right? So I'd go, I feel a little embarrassed here because I feel embarrassed because what I asked you is this question, and then you answered that question. So I feel kind of stupid. And so that, you know what I mean? So that would be more honest, right? So when we can communicate with honesty, then it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. And I could take responsibility for it 100%. But what we do in language is we try to get other people to be responsible for what's going on with us. We do that. So curiosity starts, there's three parts of it. So it's what's going on here, what's going on between you and me, and what's going on globally. So how am I relating to myself? I want to be curious about that. Like, so what's going on here? And then I want to be curious about what's going on with you. So over here, it's called honestly expressing. So I want to honestly express myself to you, which means I'm going to take responsibility for my observations, feelings, and needs. See, I observed this. So I know it's an observation. I know I could probably make a story about it. So I look, okay, am I making a story up about this? Okay, how do I feel about that? Because the story is going to trigger a feeling. I feel lonely, I feel sad, or I feel whatever. And then I want to look at the need. What is the need that I have that's not being addressed? So it could be a need for fun, closeness, competence, autonomy, discovery, stability, trust, security, respect, support. It could be any of those needs that aren't being met. So I'm listening over here going, okay, I have a need for respect. And in this conversation with this other person, my need for respect isn't being met. But it's not that person's job to meet my need.
Right.
It's because it's my need, right?
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that they don't have a need for respect, but I'm the one that has the need in that moment, right? So I may say something like, I feel a little, and I have a feelings list too. And I start with yum and yuck. So the beginning.
I know, I love that. That's one of my favorites. I mean, I really love yum and yuck. Okay.
So let's just use yum and yuck. Okay. So when my needs are being met, it's yum, right? Yay. And when my needs aren't being met, it's yuck. So I feel yuck. I feel yuck that my need for respect is not being met. I'm going to keep that to myself, because if I say it to you, it could trigger, now you're dealing with my nonsense or my upset or my need, right?
Okay, let me ask you a question here. Okay, so let's say that okay, Martine, you're important to me. I want to be here for you and with you in this conversation.
Yes.
And if this is how you're feeling, when I want to be here, even if I'm not going to own your feeling, but yet maybe allow for you to talk about your feeling.
Yes, when we're getting along. Okay. So the curiosity theory talks about a path from conflict to resolution. Now, see, what you just said is absolutely dead on. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we're getting along.
Okay.
Now, if I was married to you, we're not going to get along all the time.
Right.
And sometimes I'm going to say things, and sometimes I'm going to say things that aren't very nice, because that's like, what Martine does in relationships, right? So, and I'm not the only one, but, I'll use myself as an example.
Right.
So am I always thinking about what I'm going to say? Probably not. I'm normally just saying it. So what I notice is that when I say something and it triggers the wrong response, I want to start getting curious. Let me look and see what I did. I just made you responsible for respect. So just because I experienced a lack of respect doesn't mean you were meaning to give me a lack of respect. That was only my experience. So I may say something like, Tamara, I'm really curious by what you meant by what you just said. So now I'm curiously investigating versus accusing, judging, blaming, or complaining. So because I'm the one with the thoughts over here, I need to investigate this. Or I can say to you, which doesn't work, listen, I think what you said was very disrespectful, so let's talk about it. That typically doesn't work, right?
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So let's just say that the curiosity theory is one that's very much involved. And when everything is going great, okay, we understand the yum and yuck. And then there's something just clashes. Something
always happens.
goes astray, and then says, okay, and then you start the verbiage from the curiosity theory. Wouldn't it be, I don't want to go there? You're theorizing with me right now, because then it would be, okay, like that's more important. That could almost be seen in a way as more important because it's the theory rather than the moment, whoever it is that's in the huffy puffy place, right? And it would be like, I don't want to hear any of that jargon, right?
Well, the thing is, yes, the thing is that the jargon is what somebody else is saying. It's not what we're saying. So if I go that's the thing though. If there's so tell me this, okay. Is there any time that you didn't want to hear what's going on in your brain? Like if you were in a conversation, like that's not the right way to say it. Let me say it a different way. if you felt correct about what you were saying and who you were being and how you were expressing yourself, would you be okay if I acknowledged that, or if I agreed with it, or if I, let me think of a word. If I appreciated it, or if I was empathetic to it, would you ever have a problem with that?
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
So when I'm curiously investigating, I'm actually using your jargon. I'm actually using your verbiage versus my verbiage, right?
Okay, I get it. I'm getting it. Okay, so rather than like, let's just say yum and yuck would go off the table at that very moment in time, because that would be obviously a curiosity theory, place, right? Mm-hmm. It would be more of utilizing, listening, actively listening, writing down like you have been the words that are being, utilized. And then it would be, am I understanding this correctly, kind of a place,
exactly,
right?
Yes.
Like you're going, and so that you're honestly from the heart and from, other than just the mind, you're honestly trying to figure out what is being said.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how do I do that? How would I do that if it was you? How do I do it? See, there's like a couple options, right? So there's the Martin Lopez, default option where I think I know everything and I think I know what people are thinking. That's the one. But I'm usually right about 10% of the time on that one. So I'm usually wrong like 90% of the time, right? So I can curiously investigate. I can actually ask you a question. I could say, Tamara, you just said this. Can you tell me what you meant by that? Could you tell me what you meant by, and I just got my notes here. So I'm going to say, can you tell me what you mean by overwhelm, which you did, right? Can you tell me what you mean by play? Can you tell me what you mean by learn? Can you tell me what you mean by rabbit hole? Can you tell me what you mean?
Right.
And then you're going to tell me.
Right.
So I learned something about you. I learned something about the playground. I learned something about you being in the bubble girl. I learned that. So when I go, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of back up. There's a lot to take on here. It's like a whole day class, okay?
And then yes. And in a few minutes, or in just a little bit, I want to play a little clip in regards to that. Yes, because I found something, guys. I love finding stuff. I do, and I found something.
So if the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is safety and survival, if I'm trying to survive this conversation, I'm going to be using my reptilian brain back here, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So you and I are going to duke it out. I'm either going to run away or I'm going to sit here and wait till you're done talking. And that's going to be completely passive aggressive, right?
Right.
So, all right, let me think of a better way. Well, I want you to understand what I'm talking about, but you're busy talking about your thing. So you're not going to listen to you're not going to try to understand my thing because you're busy trying to get your thing across, right? So when you're busy trying to tell me your thing, you're not trying to understand my thing because you're telling me your thing.
Right. Okay. Right? I hear you. Yes.
Okay. What am I going to do that can be, how can I get a need met for me? Well, then what I do is I go to the top of the list and say self-actualization, fulfilling my personal potential, or self-transcendence, which is a cause beyond myself. So I could say discovery. So if I'm open to discovery, then guess what? I'm going to discover what you're talking about. And then I'm going, wow. And so if I make it a need for me, then what I do with the other needs, I drop them. I just drop the other needs. Because it's almost like, squirrel. It's like I found something, a bigger game to play, right? So in conflict, if I'm fighting with you, I'm trying to meet a need that's a personal need. I'm arguing with you because I'm trying to be heard, or I'm trying to be understood, or I'm trying to be, I'm trying to get stability or support. So I'm trying to get that from you. So what I do is I just go into we learn to do this in the curiosity theory, right? So you learn to give it to yourself. I'm going to give myself security, and I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to let this thing go. And what I'm going to do is I am going to celebrate life. And part of my celebrating life is listening to other people, and I'm going to listen to you. And what I'm going to do is my need to celebrate life is this relationship I have with you, and I'm just going to sit here and celebrate, and I get this need met. And then when we get our needs met, we're like, yum. You see?
Yes.
So in a sense, we're feeding ourselves yum. We're feeding ourselves the candy. We're feeding ourselves the sugar. We're feeding ourselves the things we want. And I know sugar and candy is not good for cancer. So, like that. So, but I'm feeding myself, the metaphoric sugar,
Yeah.
So, and I could say in self-esteem, let me just give you some of the needs: humor, meaning, challenge, clarity, competence, consciousness, contribution, creativity, play. I can take that first line. I got 3 other lines, and I could say humor. I'm going to have my need for humor. And I could just start laughing at myself as how hard I just laugh at myself and go, God, Martine, you really are just trying to get your point across. See how that happens?
Then oh yeah.
Or challenge. Martine, you just want to say what you want to say. Challenge yourself to shutting up and listening. And then as I shut up and as I listen more, I start to get yum, because my need, I'm like, wow, I'm becoming a better version of myself. Because when we meet challenges, we become better versions of ourselves. So then we start to want to live at higher levels, and the lower levels of which are fight, flight, or freeze, which are passive aggressive, which are not listening, which are having to get your point across. All those things, they seem to drop off. And then you start to discover, you start to play with people, you really start to learn about people, because you're authentically curious. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Cinnamon has a question. Martine, how do you get someone to not only listen to, but hear what I am saying?
Well, I got bad news for you, Cinnamon, because you don't get anybody to do anything. You can't get anybody to do anything. They're going to do what they want to do, because people are constantly trying to meet their needs. And so they're looking for what's in it for them. So I would ask you, if you're willing to write that, like, what specifically are you trying to get across, and what is the other person's need?
That's good.
So it's kind of like this, like, are you interested in somebody listening to you, or are you interested in them getting what they need? And it's kind of like a slippery slope, because it's kind of like a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I would say, like, if I go to my marriage, which I'm going through a divorce, I've got all the answers for that.
You have all the answers.
I've got the answers. So if you do this and you do this and you do this, everything should work out fine. Those are my answers. They have nothing to do with Yvette. They have nothing to do with her answers and what she wants. It's my answers. So my goal is to find out what she needs, and not always do our goals and our needs come together.
Okay, so let me ask you the question in regards to that. And thank you for being open and honest about this, because a lot of people are right now, there's so many people that are, if you will, many feel stuck together because of the COVID situation, and what was already there is being amplified in many, many, many ways.
Stuck together in a relationship, you mean?
No, like in a house, like they can't go out. And so if by chance the relationship is not a healthy one, it is that much more magnified if it's, and so there's a lot of what I was just on a conference this weekend, and they were talking about this very thing, relationships, and how do you get through this period of time and everything like this. And what you were just saying about and hearing each other, and hearing yourself, being honest with yourself. What is it that Martine wants? What is it that Yvette wants? And so then when you can come together and have those conversations, is it that sometimes we find out that maybe we've grown apart and there is no way of coming back together?
Not willing to do it, not willing to give it. Like, I'm not willing to give that, like, honestly. And that sucks, because, if I look at my relationship, it sucks, because what she wants, I would love to give her, but I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want to live my life that way. And there's nothing wrong with living life that way. That's a great way to live life. It's just not a way that I want to live my life.
Right.
So it becomes like, so it's not a story. I'm not making up a story. I'm not making a metaphor. I'm just saying facts. To me, the fact is that my wife wants to live a life that's a particular way. That's a beautiful way to live life.
Right.
I have a different path. And I don't I don't see how they can work together. I don't see them working together. And we've tried.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't work together. You know? It
And
just doesn't work.
sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Or I
No, I
mean,
don't like
that's
that phrase. I
okay.
don't like that
So
phrase.
okay, we can with love let go. Or I mean, there's I'm trying to
Let's tear
within
that
the
phrase
whole.
apart really quick.
Pardon?
Let's tear that phrase apart really quick
Okay.
because we can overlook that phrase. So
Okay.
let's agree to disagree. Okay. I don't use that one.
Okay.
This is what you believe, and this is what you feel, and this is what you need.
Uh-huh.
This is what I feel, this is what I believe, and this is what I need. They're two separate
Feel,
things.
believe, and need. I love
Okay.
that. Okay.
So this is
Mm-hmm.
just what I believe, this is what I feel, this is what I need. This is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's no agree to disagree. This is yours, this is mine.
Right. Okay. So you're agreeing that these are the things that I feel, need, and believe and need, and these are the things you feel, believe, and need, and right.
Yeah, but agreement is kind of one of those tough words that we came up with in our language.
Hmm.
That is like one of those slippery slope things because
Okay.
like like let's say for instance you had $1,000 and you dropped it on the floor and I picked it up and you said to me, that's my $1,000. Okay, that's the fact, right? And you say, I think you should give it back to me. And I could say, I agree, I should.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, Cinnamon wrote this, and I'm going to cover you up here for a moment and
No
read this,
problem.
okay? And let everybody else read it too. And that is, I live with my family due to having cancer, and they like to argue and be petty more than not. And I am
Leave that up
looking.
for a little while. We'll take that apart.
Okay. All right. So let's. Okay. I'm going to just let you take
Read
this
the whole
apart.
thing.
Go.
Well, no, go
Okay.
ahead, read the whole
I
thing and then
am
we'll go
looking
back.
for them to hear me about them not fighting and how it affects me and themselves. I'm in pain constantly, and my anxiety is at about a 75 to 100%, I think, most of the time. I
Be heard.
just want to be
Be heard.
heard and know I can't make anyone do anything.
Okay. Cinnamon. So let's take that apart. Okay. I live with my family. Okay. That's a fact. Due to having cancer is not true. It's not true. That's a choice. I live with my family. You don't live with your family due to having cancer. That's a choice. You could
Okay.
walk out and live on the street. You could do that. I'm not saying that's a good choice, but that's a choice. Okay. And here comes the judgment. Okay. I don't know. It's either going to be a judgment, a complaint, or a blame. And they like to argue. Okay. So that's a judgment, blame, or a complaint right there. So Cinnamon, if you write down, what is that? They like to argue. Is that a judgment, a blame, or a complaint about them? It might be all three. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just going to suggest that it's one of those. Okay. But I'm telling you in this context. Okay. So, and be petty. Well, that's also a judgment, right? More than not. So you're judging people and saying that they like to be petty more than they don't like to be petty. They like to argue. And then you're saying I'm stuck with them because there's a COVID thing and I have cancer. So now you're making yourself a victim of that. And I'm not, no, Cinnamon, I don't want to disrespect you. I'm just going to, this is how we think in the curiosity theory. This is how we coach people because it's about being empowered with what you say. So we go, so I love you. Thank you, Cinnamon. It's beautiful. She said all three. She's judging, blaming, and complaining, right?
Cinnamon is amazing. She
That's
really
beautiful.
is.
And
And
that's
she's, and I want to
courageous.
say thank you. Yes, I want to say thank you, Cinnamon, for letting us work on this right now with everyone. Okay,
So I'm going to ask you to type in, how do you feel when somebody judges you, when you think someone's judging with you? And I'm talking about an emotion. So type in an emotion and either you either write yum or yuck, you can, or you can say, I feel sad, or I feel hurt, or I feel lonely, or I feel like crying, or something. Like, what's the feeling you have when the story that you're experiencing is being judged or being stuck or something? What's that story? What is the feeling? I'm going to wait for that. So I have a feelings list. It's like yum or yuck, but then there's a feelings list. So I'm going to say if it were me. So if I felt like I was being judged, or people was arguing with me, I'd feel kind of sad. I'd feel hurt. Feel disturbed, agitated, maybe frustrated, maybe angry. These are feelings that I would experience, right? Because I have a need for peace. I have a need for security. Okay, this is it. So I never looked at it that way. Thank you for bringing she feels sad, lonely, and hurt. So I'm going to ask you, Tamara, have you ever felt sad?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever felt lonely?
Yes.
Have you ever felt hurt?
Yes.
Okay. So empathy in the curiosity theory is to be able to look at something but not project yourself on the thing. Mm-hmm. So empathy is to be able to look at an emotion or look at what somebody's experiencing without projecting yourself onto it. Mm-hmm. So when she says sad, lonely, and hurt, I kind of reference. I go, yeah, I know what sad feels like. I know what lonely feels like. And I know what hurt feels like. But then I would be really interested and be curious about how that means. What does Cinnamon mean by that? Cinnamon, and I would ask you, I'd say, so what does sad feel like? Tell me about sad. Tell me about lonely, and tell me about hurt. Can we go put the other thing back up now?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm curious. I want to know what that's like. And I'm just going to stick with her first sentence until we get that nailed. And then she's now going to express a need. Now watch this. She's going to express a need. I am looking for them to hear me. So she has a need to be heard. And the need that she has to be heard is about them not fighting and how it affects her. So I have a need for peace. I have a need for order. I have a need for love. I have a need for us getting along. And I would like to express that to you. And that's what she's saying. I have a need to say that to people. And I'd like for you to hear that. And not only what people are saying is not only would I like for you to hear what I'm saying, that's kind of like a general agreement that we have. Like most people want peace, most people want order, most people want to get along. But I'd like to know how you feel about that. How do you feel about getting along? How do you feel about not fighting? And so you engage in that conversation, but we're not taught how to engage in that conversation. What we're taught is how to accuse people, how to judge people, how to blame people, and how to complain about people. That's what we're taught. When I say curiously investigating, that is a skill that we're going to ask people about what they're experiencing. So when someone's yelling at me, if someone's arguing or someone's judging or blaming or complaining, I want to know what's behind that. So I'm really curious about what's going on with you that you've just said what you said to me. You just said that I was an asshole. I'm really curious about that. Like, what do you mean by that? But see, the version that I could take on is to protect myself, which is reptilian. So I'm gonna protect, but being curious is like, I'm just gonna investigate this. Like, I'm really curious, like, because I know that I am sometimes, but I'm interested in what it is like for you to be in a relationship with me and how that shows up. And then she's going to go on to talk about the pain that she consistently feels, the anxiety that she experiences. And this is amazing that 75 to 100% of the time she's experiencing pain and anxiety. That's like, wow. I mean, that's just like how her life is experienced by her. I don't have that. I don't have anxiety 75% of the time. I don't have pain 75% of the time. But I can empathize with it. I can go, I know what it is to be in pain, and I know what it is to be anxious. And then I go, wow, 75 to 100% of the time, like, whoa.
She's continuing here, and sorry to step on your words. Said to me feels like screaming in the dark with no one there to comfort me. And then she goes, alone to me feels like, again, screaming in the dark cave with nobody hearing me and ignoring me.
Yeah. I never in a million years would have guessed that. Do you know what I mean? So Tamara, would you have given that definition?
No.
To see what alone means? And that's the thing, is that people use their words to express what's going on in themselves. Yeah. And then what we do is we then project our definition of those words onto people. And then we relate to them as though our definition is what they're saying. So if I'm saying, if Cinnamon is saying alone feels to me like screaming in the dark, in a dark cave with nobody
Right.
hearing me and ignoring me. I'm like, wow, I can empathize with that. I can just go,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. And I don't have to project myself on that. I can just go, wow, Cinnamon, like, I get that. Like, I hear you. And I'm not going to trample on it. See, so curiosity is like not about trampling on somebody's emotions or experience. It's about empathizing with it. It's about connecting with it. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about human connection.
Oh, really? Okay. So tell us more about that.
So every Tuesday, I have a show, and we're walking through the workbook of curiosity theory. And tomorrow, we're going to talk about human connection.
And where can we watch this show?
On my you can go to on my fan page at thecuriositytheory.com on or Curiosity Theory on Facebook, or you can go to Martin Lopez. I think it's Mr. Martin. It's Facebook / Mr. Martin Lopez, or you can find me on what is it, YouTube as well. So I do the show every Tuesday, and we talk about this stuff, and we deep dive into it, because just like we
this show,
that's the show, but that's not the one for tomorrow.
Okay, but this is the show. I just wanted to make sure. So it's the Curiosity Theory Hangout?
Okay. Yeah, it's the Curiosity Theory Hangout.
Okay, so guys, write this down. Okay, and then is it always at 7:00 Pacific?
Every Tuesday night, 7:00
Every
Pacific.
Tuesday. Okay. All right. Awesome. And you know, and then the book. To get the book and everything, is that something that you go to Amazon and get, or?
Sure can if you want to spend money, but if you want to go to, I think it's thecuriositybook.com. If you go to thecuriositybook.com, you can download the audio for free.
Oh, you're amazing. Awesome. Okay, yeah. In fact, I think, oh, there we go. Oh, I had it, but it's gone. Okay, it's not like that.
Thecuriositybook.com, and I'll put that back in the show notes and stuff.
Okay.
Awesome. Or you can just send me a message and I'll send it to you. And if you want to buy the book, that's great. I like it. It's pretty cool. It's not what I do for a living, so but I like my little $2-3 per book I make every month. And I appreciate that. And then as far as the workbook, every week on the Curiosity Theory Hangout, then I post the page.
Okay.
So I'll post the page, and then you can download the page and stuff like that. But if you want the whole workbook, I can email it to you. I can email you the workbook, but it's not necessarily how we're going through it. I'm changing it around a little bit.
Well, we're going to have to continue this. I'm going to have you back. Will you come back? Because obviously this is an engaged group, and we've got only a couple more minutes, because we're on a platform that there's like a hard stop, because there's another show coming on after this one. And so we want to be respectful of that. And so, Ruben, okay, I'm being empathetic. Not mean to be laughing. Yes, it is a choice. And so,
but Cinnamon, real quick, yes. It is a choice, but the power is in the choice. Like the power that you have in your life is in the choice. See, if it's not a choice, you have no power. See, but the fact that it's a choice is where the power is. That's where the beauty is.
I love that.
It's you can.
Being hurt to me feels like, and reminds me of childhood, being hit, screamed at, and my self-esteem being trampled on. I have really worked on myself for a long time, and I know I'm still a book that's unwritten.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm going to do what they call trampled on. This is what I mean by trampled on. Okay, so Cinnamon, so I'm going to ask you just to think about this. Okay, notice when I say what I'm going to say, how I take away from what you said. Okay, so Cinnamon, I also had that same childhood that I felt that when I was hit and screamed at. I also felt that same way. So what happens is I'm connecting with you and I'm understanding what you're saying, but I'm now making it about me. So I now just made that about me.
Right.
That's one of the hardest things to do. Like when you can connect with someone and you have an experience like that person, to tell someone about your experience. Because they're not asking you for your experience. You're not asking Martine. You're not saying, hey, Martine, when you were a little kid, did your dad spank you? You're not asking me that question. But the second I tell you that, it could go one of two ways. It then has you thinking about what I talked about, and I'm no longer discussing what you talked about. That's a really slippery slope.
Yes.
You know?
However, with the buddies, when you have someone that can empathize and understand, that does help, right? Even if you don't bring it up, that your own story, but that you can understand. And I mean, I know I'm opening up another door right now.
Okay. So it's
Okay,
from
so I'll let
conflict
you
to
finish.
resolution. So I say from conflict to resolution. So
Okay,
in
right.
normal conversations, when you're bringing that up, and I'm just saying, hey, Cinnamon, I had the same thing. My father was like that. He spanked me a lot, and he said things to me that really hurt me. Okay, if that forwards the conversation, great. If it stops the conversation, because now we're talking about Martine's childhood,
Right. Okay.
I want to be curious to see how it landed. Did this forward the conversation? Because if it didn't forward the conversation, now what Cinnamon just said, if it didn't forward the conversation, it just stopped what she said. So now she's
Right.
dealing with me. Like, now,
Mm-hmm.
okay, now Martine, let's talk about you and your father.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, so it's kind of a slippery slope. So you have to stay curious to see how what you say lands. Does what you say forward the conversation, or did you make it about you now? Or now are we talking about me and Mr. Lopez and how he treated me? Are you with me on that?
Yeah, I am.
So
Absolutely.
that's why we want to stay curious. That's why we want to stay
Mm-hmm.
curious. That's why we ask questions and watch for the light bulb. We want to watch. Did it light it up, or did it just dim it? Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in conversation.
I wanna say thank you to Cinnamon for being vulnerable and letting people see you, and learn today from Martine and with you, Cinnamon. Would you come back? I mean, I know you're going to be doing the show, but I feel as though we are unable to complete this, and I would love to be able to have like a part two, and Cinnamon come back, and so that we can continue this, and then and see it to the completion, right? The resolution,
Yeah,
and everything. That would be spectacular,
that'd be good.
because we've got to close down, guys, and it's just like I want to thank you. She's feeling humbled by you, and isn't he wonderful? He truly is a service hero. And Martine, thank you for being here, and we have to close it up fast, guys, so we're going to go for a fast goodbye and say I'll make an announcement. We'll figure it out when we can have Martine back, and we'll continue this conversation. And in the meantime, we will be back for the show on Wednesday. See everybody then.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you. All right.